Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. We've got you covered. Traditional leagues, dynasty league, PPR league, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
What is going on, y'all? We are back for another episode of the Gsmc Fantasy Football Podcast. Guys, if you're here, it means you subscribe to the Patreon. I appreciate y'all for doing that, subscribing to the Patreon, and just checking us out. This is the only place you can get mine. Obviously, my name is Austin. My only place that you can get my fantasy football takes, my fantasy football exclusive content is only on the Patreon. So I'm happy to be here with y'all, and we're just going to be talking some fantasy football today. I think I'm going to go over some wide receivers first in my first segment, and then on the backside, I'll be doing some running back talk. But it's all fantasy talk. It's all just talk about fantasy football. And, I'm not afraid to just get right into it. After I tell y'all to like and subscribe, please interact with the channel and, let us know that you're watching. Please drop a comment if you think anything should be changed or anything should be, shifted around, things that you like, things that you dislike. Just let us know what you're thinking, what your thoughts are. But we're going to start off with the fantasy talk, talking about wide receivers, talking about guys that I enjoy in this week 4 matchup. And I want to start off talking about a guy who is on my fantasy team, who I took with my 4th pick, who should be good all year, but has really not shown that in the first 2 weeks. Finally found a way to have a good week in week 3, and I'm talking about Jamar Chase. So let's get him up here. Jamar Chase, obviously wide receiver 1 for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I want to get his stats up here so I can see them. Gonna refresh real quick. Guys, Jamar Chase gonna be playing against the Titans in this week 4 matchup, going up against Christian Fulton, wide receiver, or Christian Fulton cornerback, wide receiver matchup, and then also going up against McCreary, who is a bit of an average cornerback. In all actuality, on PFF it's shown that he has a good matchup against both of these guys, giving 75 out of 100% on both of them. Jamar Chase, week 3, like I said, popped off, had a pretty good week. Joe Burrow was finally able to find him, and they were actually force-feeding him. They were mandatorily getting him the ball in this game against the Rams. Rams also have the worst coverage in the entire NFL, so makes sense that he was getting the ball in this game. He finished with 12 receptions for 141 yards, averaging 11.8 yards per catch. 15 targets, definitely going to get it done. That makes a lot of sense that, he's about time that he got force-fed the ball multiple times. We'll see what happens with Jamar and Burrow. With Burrow obviously facing that calf injury that has been lingering. He's kind of walking around gingerly in practice week to week, so we'll see what happens with him. But against those corners, if Joe Burrow is able to play, I do like Jamar Chase to have a pretty big day against the Titans on Sunday. They're going to play in that early window too, so make sure you are aware of that. Next guy I want to hit is going to be Chris Olave. Chris Olave currently sitting at, Chris Olave, obviously playing for the Saints, had a pretty big day against the Green Bay Packers in week 3. Went for 8 catches, 104 yards. This guy's already gone for 100 yards in 2+ games in the 2023 NFL season. I mean, to say 2+, but only in 2 games. And week 2 was the only game that he was not able to eclipse 100 yards. He had 86, so still very, very close. He's going to be going up against a Tampa Bay defense who is a little bit beaten up. Their best guy, Jamel Dean, who plays corner for them, is questionable with neck/shoulder injury. We saw what happened to him if you were watching the game where Tampa was playing in He had a neck/shoulder injury. He did not practice on Wednesday, so that's definitely going to be a hurt for them. Tampa Bay defense also bottom 10 coverage in the entire league, so very interesting. I think Chris Olave is going to have a shot to go for that third 100-yard game against this Tampa Bay defense that's a bit beaten up, not playing like the defense that we've seen that they had with Brady. Obviously, they still have Devin White. They still have a bunch of good guys. Jamel Dean was literally one of their centerpieces, so it's unfortunate for them that he's going to be out. But I do see Chris Olave probably having a pretty big game on Sunday. They also play in the early window, too, for anybody that has Chris Olave. Definitely think Chris Olave could have a pretty good game and think that he has a chance to be a good DFS target, weekly fantasy target. Always talking about those type of guys on this podcast. Next guy that we like, and like him for a couple of reasons, just because he was coming off the injury, Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy going to be up against the Bears. In my live segment, I talked about Courtland Sutton and how much I liked him. Just being that, physical, big physical, strong and fast type wide receiver. And Jerry Jeudy is kind of the opposite of a guy like Courtland Sutton. He's a bit skinnier. He, doesn't have like the physicals or like the extreme speed. It's not like Courtland Sutton has extreme speed by any means either. But Jerry Jeudy more of like a 4.5 40 type guy. So cornerbacks are going to be, much faster than him. But he didn't play week 1. Came back week 2 and looked like he had some limited time on the field, only 3 receptions for 25 yards, ended up with 5.5 fantasy points. Then week 3 did a bit better. Obviously, they lost by 50, so, a passing type game for the Broncos and a game that they're going to have to pass if they're going to do absolutely anything. Can't get beat by 70, have to put a couple points up, but that led to 13 fantasy points for Jerry Jeudy. He ended up with 5 receptions for 81 yards on 7 targets, which is definitely going to get it done. Going up against a really bad Bears secondary, bad Bears defense. I was talking about this in the live show too. They'll pretty much give it up however you want to get it. They're constantly giving up yards every single game, so it doesn't really matter who does it. I just think Jerry Jeudy has a good chance to be the guy to have the big game against this really bad Bears defense. We saw Travis Kelce eat up with Taylor Swift in the box earlier, so, in week 3. So definitely think that Jerry Jeudy has a pretty good chance to have a good game against this really bad Bears team. Next guy I want to hit, a guy who's had a really good game in both of the last 2 weeks, and someone who it's kind of been going under people's radar constantly all the time, and that is George Pickens. I think George Pickens has a really good shot against Houston to have a pretty big day. Low-key, as the Jaguars were playing Houston in the last matchup in week 3, they were locking up all of their receivers pretty much. Christian Kirk did end up with like 15 fantasy points, only because he caught a touchdown really late in the game. But they were locking up a pretty good Jaguars offense, which I was very surprised to see. I don't see that really happening again against the Steelers defense, or against the Steelers offense, just because Pickett is such a deep threat. I do see Pickens, going deep at least once or twice and finding a way to get over on that coverage. If you are not aware, Derek Stingley, who is the Houston Texans' number 1 cornerback, and he was the 4th pick in the draft, if I'm not mistaken. He is going to be sitting out for the next couple weeks. So, George Pickens just picking up on advantages in the injury game. First, with Deontay Johnson being out. So he's picking up on that injury. He's becoming the wide receiver 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then second, picking up on another injury where the guy who is supposed to be probably following him all around the field is going to be injured, and a cornerback 2 / slot cornerback / cornerback 3 is going to be the one guarding him. That's going to be a really good matchup for him. He's size and strength type receiver, probably runs like a 4.4, very, very fast, and I just like his matchup against Houston. Usually the most matchups against the Houston Texans. This is my team. If you're not aware, this is my squad. I ride for them. Here for the bad times and the good times. Arian Foster is my favorite player, but I know that without Derek Stingley, we're going to be pretty thin at cornerback, trying to guard a guy like George Pickens, who's like a 6'3", like I said, 4'4" type speed type guy. So I don't think it's going to be too good of a matchup for the Houston Texans this week. See George Pickens probably having a pretty big game himself. I think the last guy I want to hit here is going to be a player who's been making splash plays in the league for the last like 8+ years. Guy who literally got cut from his last team somehow, literally got cut after being like a top paid receiver, top 5 receiver as it pertains to stats, and that's going to be Nuke DeAndre Hopkins, man. DeAndre Hopkins, pretty decent fantasy appearance with his new team, Tennessee Titans. In my opinion, I don't think that we can look too far into these first 3 weeks, as he's definitely trying to find some chemistry with his quarterback, Ryan Tannehill, and Ryan Tannehill obviously still a very average quarterback at best, but DeAndre Hopkins still a very big threat in this league. I think he's like 31 years old, still not too old, in very good shape. Obviously wants that media attention still, so I know that he's incentivized to continue playing well on this team. First week against a very pretty tough DB group with the New Orleans Saints against like Marcus May, Tyrann Mathieu, Marshawn Lattimore. He had a 15-point fantasy outing in week 1, 7 receptions for 65 yards actually on 13 targets. Since then has had 2 40-yard games with, holding still a pretty big target share. Currently has 25 targets throughout 3 games. So obviously they're trying to get this guy the ball. Very much so, and I just don't think that they've found the ways to do that. Cincinnati does have a bottom 10 coverage. They do have a bottom 10 coverage according to PFF. So I think it's time for DeAndre Hopkins to have a big day on Sunday, and I definitely see that happening. Guys, when I come back, we're going to be talking about running backs, so make sure you come back for the running back talk so I can walk you guys through. Also, make sure you tune into the live episode tomorrow. That'll be Friday, September 29th, and I'm going to be talking matchups. So, yeah, come back with me for running back talk. What is good, guys? GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Austin. I'm here again. We're going to be talking running backs in this segment. This is my running back talk. If y'all come back for Friday, September 29th, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, I'm going to be talking my favorite episode of the week, and that's my matchups episode. I'm going to be giving you guys the guys with the best matchups in fantasy football this week. We'll be talking about DFS. We'll be talking about weekly fantasy where you're playing like Sunday through Monday type thing. Obviously, you can't get on a Thursday action because the Lions just smoked the Green Bay Packers by a sizable margin. I think like 17 points-ish. 34-17 is what the last score that I saw before I started recording the episode. But goodness gracious, that was terrible. But let's just get into my running back talk. I'm very excited to get into these running backs and talk about these guys with some good matchups. And you guys get this early, obviously being a part of the Patreon, so I appreciate you for that. I want to talk about Justin Fields, but apparently he's not a running back. I don't know why he's not listed at running back. Somehow he's listed at quarterback. Very strange to me because he's not very good at throwing the ball, but we'll take it. We'll just talk about guys who line up in the backfield right now, and I'm excited to bring this to you guys, so let's talk about it. First guy I want to talk about is going to be Najee Harris, who I had as one of my losers on Monday. If you guys don't know, on Monday I'll talk about winners and losers. And on Monday I talked about Najee Harris as a loser for week 3. He ended up having his best week 3, his absolute best week that he's had all season, and only had 6.5 fantasy points. He did that on 19 touches, so not going to get it done by any means. Busted 2 of the 3 weeks that he has played football in the 2023 season. However, he's going to be going up against a Houston defense that is absolutely the worst rushing defense in the entire league. So, I said this earlier about Courtland Sutton. No, I said this about somebody. I said this about Josh Jacobs. Like, if he's going to have a good game, and I'm talking about Najee Harris right now against anybody, it should be against worst rushing defense, the Texans. I also said this about Josh Jacobs. If he's going to have a good game against anybody, it should be against a very bad rushing team, which is the Chargers that Josh Jacobs and the Raiders are going to be playing next week. Josh Jacobs showed improved a little bit more against the Steelers defense in week 3. He actually had his season high in rushing yards so far this season. But I'm expecting Najee Harris to have a pretty good week this week. If they're going to let him touch the ball 19 times in a game where they're playing like a pretty decent squad, I can't imagine what they're going to do if they find a way to get up against this Houston Texans team that, shouldn't win too many games. I feel like they kind of fluke won their last game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, where somehow they won 37-17. I don't think we'll see too many performances where the Houston Texans will be putting up 37 points in a game, and I really don't think against this big, bad, talented Steelers defense that the Houston Texans will be able to do too much. I'm excited to see what Najee Harris is able to do against them, especially if he's going to be in those 15 to 20 touches type range. Also, if Najee Harris doesn't end up going and they start going away from him, Coach Mike Tomlin, obviously not a fan of losing football, and it seems like Najee Harris may be providing some negative EV type football. Right now, I'm not afraid to go with a guy like Jaylen Warren, who could pick up receiving yards, obviously, and then is also very good running the ball too. So excited to see what this Pittsburgh backfield can do against this really, really bad, worst ranked in the NFL, Houston rushing defense. Next guy I want to talk about, someone who had an absolute ball out type week in week 3, is Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker had a big day on last Sunday. I'm trying to pull it up here. Big day though. I think 18 carries, 97 yards, and 2 scores. Let me fact check that real quick. Make sure I'm correct. Yep, 18 carries, 97 yards, 2 scores. Also added in 3 receptions for 59 yards. I remember him having a really good catch on the sideline, and he hauled it in. He's not really known as a receiving back, but even before this week, he had 5 catches in 2 games, which is much more than he's been doing previously in his career. So that's a very good sign to see from a guy who's supposed to just be like a run every down type back, maybe block for his quarterback, but not really receiving back. Love that. And he gets to play against the New York Giants this week, who have been absolutely awful versus the run. Obviously, they've been facing a lot of good opponents. Definitely some good opponents that the Giants have been facing so far. Obviously, went up against Dallas, and they didn't do very good that game. They got 40-0. Didn't do anything anything good as it pertains to the offensive side of the ball. And then they also played the 49ers, where they were just gashed in every which way. I think Deebo Samuel went over 100, and Christian McCaffrey himself had a pretty big day. No, he had a touchdown in that game. Kind of scared for this Giants team in general, especially their defense. Don't think they can really hold up. Don't have too much talent. They used to have Jabril Peppers and got rid of him. The only guy that I see of note on their defense to be afraid of as a fantasy manager would be a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon, but that is literally it. Can't see any other guy doing too much, and think that Kenneth Walker is bound to have a field day. Also was talking about DK Metcalf a little bit earlier this week, thinking that he could also have a really big game against this really bad Giants defense. Literally every single running back has gotten off against this Giant squad, so I wouldn't expect Kenneth Walker to do any different this week. Next guy I want to hit is a guy coming off suspension. If you watch my previous Patreon episode, I was talking about Alvin Kamara and how he's coming off the suspension. He actually got in a fight in Las Vegas. Super weird situation where I think he just was wrong place, wrong time, and guy was probably aggravating him because he's an NFL player. Naturally, I feel like all the people who are not NFL players see an NFL player and they're either like, oh, I love you, or oh, I hate you. And that's the only, there's no in between on that. But he gets to come back in this week 4 matchup. They'll be playing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And surprisingly, I don't think a lot of people would think this with guys like Vita Vea and guys like Devin White, but Tampa Bay has the 3rd worst rushing defense through 3 weeks this season. So I definitely think that Alvin Kamara could find a way to have a day. He's done it many times before for the Saints team. Obviously, Jameis Winston is probably going to be starting because of the fact that Derek Carr is still down bad with that AC joint sprain. He got slammed really hard in the backfield. So I don't think we're going to see him for at least another week at least. And guys like Alvin Kamara are going to need to carry the load because Jameis Winston is liable to make a lot of bad decisions in the backfield. I think Alvin Kamara could have a pretty good day against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers squad, and he actually will be playing host to them. So they'll be playing in the Superdome, no weather effects. So I'm excited about that for sure. If you guys want to watch my previous live episode, I was talking about weather. I always go over the weather report throughout the week to make sure you guys are updated about weather and there's no mistakes that you make because you didn't know it was going to be a really rainy day and people are going to be dropping balls, what have you. So make sure you're tuning into all my segments because I'm always giving you that fantasy news. All the fantasy implications are there on the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Next guy I want to talk about, though, is a very surprising running back 6. This guy is sitting at running back 6 in fantasy football right now, and that is Devon Achane, who week 1 didn't even play, didn't record any carries, any yards, any touchdowns at all. Week 2 came back, had 1 carry for 5 yards, also caught 1 reception for 4 yards. Then miraculously, somehow, week 3 comes out. I don't even know what really sparked him being able to come through and be the lead back for them. Obviously, Jeff Wilson had been out for a while. I think it was the fact that Savon Ahmed was inactive this game, and he just immediately came in, put up 18 carries, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Then, added in 4 carries, 30 yards, or 4 receptions, 4 receptions, 30 yards, and 2 touchdowns through the air. Ended up with 51.3 fantasy points. That's going to do it for sure. Absolutely going to do it for your fantasy team. If there's any way you started Devon Achane in week 3, good on you. But how is he going to follow up a performance like that? That is the question that we're all begging to know. Somehow I was able to get Devon Achane on my team for one of my leagues because I was actually bought him in the waiver order somehow. I'm saying somehow like I'm not 0-3 or something, but I am. And Devon Achane will be able to go up against a bottom third. They are currently ranked 11th worst in rushing defense in the Buffalo Bills. So not too much to worry about. Obviously, Buffalo Bills have a couple good guys on defense, but mostly in their secondary with like Poyer and Tre'Davious White, guys like that. I think they still have Ed Oliver sitting on their D-line, but obviously they're not performing through the first 3 weeks of football. And I'm excited to see how Devon Achane plays. We got a comment here. Lamar Cousins to start in week 4. Lamar is playing host to who? Lamar Cousins is playing. Where are these guys at? Kirk Cousins playing against Carolina. That's a great matchup for Kirk. We just saw DK and Geno Smith go absolutely dog crazy against this Carolina defense, and I don't think they have too much in the tank. But Lamar is going up against Cleveland. I would definitely start Kirk right now. Seems like just that Justin Jefferson Kirk Cousins connection right now is going crazy, and Lamar has to play against the Browns, who just have been stopping up everything on the defensive side of the ball. So I would definitely go with Kirk right now. I'm pretty sure Kirk is also like quarterback 1 in fantasy football right now. Let's check. He's currently sitting at quarterback 2 on ESPN leagues. So I'm going to start Kirk every single time that I can until he shows me that I can't. He is the best weapon in football, and I think that's kind of a no-brainer in that situation. Obviously, Lamar has the rushing ability, but I don't think it matters too much. But getting back to Achane, I think he has a chance to possibly do something. We don't know what his workload is going to look like in this Buffalo game, but after rushing for 200 yards, your team typically gives you a chance to do some more and show some more. So I think he's pretty much a must start in week 4. I'm definitely going to start him in my league, and I just think it makes sense to do that. Last guy I wanted to talk about real quick before we wrap up this Patreon segment, and shout out to all the people tuning in for sure. Appreciate all the questions. But we're talking about Brian Robinson. He's going to be going up against a very tough Eagles defense. Eagles defense right now is number 1 in the entire league for rush defense, and the reason I want to talk about him is because I think that somebody has to find a way to break free against this Eagles defense. Obviously, I have like guys like Jordan Davis out of Georgia, who was a top pick, Hassan Reddick, got a bunch of dogs. They actually just got back their safety, who's like more of a run stop type safety, and Reed Blankenship too. But I think that Brian Robinson is just too big, too strong right now. He's shown a lot, so I think that he can get it done. Let's go. We have another comment here. Algier wants to. I need to upgrade in tight end. I got offered Mark Andrews and Atwell for Jerome Ford. No, Jerome Ford. He has too much potential at the moment. Obviously, they brought in Kareem Hunt to come in and like make plays for them, but he literally didn't do that. Jerome Ford had 2 touchdowns in that week. That week 3 matchup. Don't see how you can get rid of Jerome Ford right now, but you should find a way to get rid of Algier immediately because Bijan Robinson literally just outrushed him in week 3. It was like 10-7 or something like that. I think it was 10-7 in rushing attempts, and Algier only had 20 snaps in week 3 too, as Bijan had 54 snaps. So you need to get rid of Algier. I would hold on to Jerome Ford. I actually was able to get Jerome Ford too, but I think you need to hold on to him because Brown's head coach literally said that he's going to be the featured running back, even over Kareem Hunt, who's probably more talented. Oh, here we go. You put your team above Lamar Jackson, Ramondre, Cook, Lamb Brown. Oh, you're looking good right now. Judy Ford. Oh, okay, so Ford's gonna sit on your bench, and then you can get Mark Andrews in place of Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry's currently performing very, very well. He's performing very well, so I don't think that you need to go away from him yet. He looks like Mac Jones' like kind of number 2 favorite target, and surprisingly, Juju Smith-Schuster is not even making an appearance in this Patriots offense. So I think Hunter Henry kind of gets slotted up to like wide receiver 2, kind of wide receiver 1, maybe behind Kendrick Bourne. But Algier 1-2, I need an upgrade in tight end. I don't think you really need an upgrade in tight end. Hunter Henry is definitely doing it. I guess you have Kincaid on the back. See if you can trade some of your bench pieces to get Mark Andrews, because I do think Mark Andrews is in for a good season, especially once everybody starts paying attention to Lamar's running game, because Lamar just went for 100 yards in week 3. They're definitely going to start putting a spy on him, and those are usually the times where Mark Andrews starts to pop off, is when they have that linebacker spy completely paying attention to Lamar Jackson, and then Mark Andrews is able to work around that guy. I still love Mark Andrews, no doubt, but don't really want to give up Jerome Ford because I think he has a lot of potential. Let's see. You got offered. Let's see, we got another guy. I got offered Bijan and Montgomery for James Conner. Wait. I offered Bijan for Montgomery and James Conner. Ooh. Dude, I like Bijan. I was literally just saying this the other day. I might give up anybody on my squad to get Bijan Robinson. Literally think he's a generational type talent. Obviously, Montgomery and Conner are 2 very solid running backs, so I'd probably need to see the rest of your team to decide if that's a decent decision. But Angel, I think you should just stay put. Hunter Henry is doing his thing, so I don't think there's any reason to just get rid of him. Him being Ford, I don't think you should get rid of Ford yet. And then I want Bijan in every single spot. I want Bijan as much as possible. I want him everywhere. That guy is a generational talent. Literally so good. If you watch his, I would just welcome you to go watch Bijan tape from his little first 3 weeks that he's put on. Obviously 2 20-point fantasy performances and kind of fell off a little bit in week 3. And that's why I'm trying to buy right now on Bijan, because I know that he's going to have a big season. He's just like Saquon, for real. He's literally just like Saquon. Their names sound the same, Bijan, Saquon. But if there's not any more questions, this is supposed to be the Patreon segment. I appreciate y'all tuning in and stuff. But yeah, we'll be here every single night, 7 p.m. Mountain Time is usually when I go live, and then I'll do the Patreon on the backside. But hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and we'll see y'all later.